Welcome to Office 2016 video number 1. This is going to be an introduction to Office 2016 and the ever important Windows Explorer. Now, this is a Highline College business class. The official name is Business 216, and the title in the catalog is Computer Applications for Business. I like to call it Fun and Power with Computers. Now, as we talked about in the introductory video, we're going to cover these 5 programs, and here are the percentages for each one of the programs. Now, why are we going to spend so much time in Excel? Because in the business world, this is the #1 program used. Now, we're going to start out in this video just an introduction to the operating system and a little bit about Windows Explorer, and open up each one of these and talk about the ribbons and the quats and things like that. Now, Windows Explorer, we use it to manage files and folders. Word, we use it to create documents with words, formatting, and pictures like flyers, business letters, and research papers. PowerPoint, we create presentations with words, images, design, movement, and sound to articulate some message. Excel, we can store data, make calculations, perform data analysis, and make charts. And Access, that's a proper database where we store data in related tables and create information and reports from raw data using queries. You may not know what much of this means right now, but by the end of the class, you will know about the power and fun of each one of these programs to make our jobs easy. Now, I'm going to close this file. This is the title bar. Here's the X up in the title bar. I'm going to close that. Now, as we talked about in the introductory video at our class people.highline website, there will be class video projects. And sometimes there'll be a start file, finish file, a handout, assigned homework, and maybe even some other things. For this video, there's none of those. The only thing that you want to download is this PDF. This has all the notes and details about what you saw in the video. You can clearly see there's no link for the video yet because I'm filming the first video right now. Now, this is a browser, so I'm going to come up in the title bar and close this using the X. Hey, now the very first thing, since we're going to start at 0 in this class, is, hey, this is a desktop. Down below the desktop is the taskbar. Now, notice we have icons to open Excel, Word, Windows Explorer, Access. We're missing the one for PowerPoint, but I'll show you how to add that in just a second. Now, wait a second. Your operating system may be different than the one I'm using. I'm using operating system Windows 7. You might have Windows 10 or even Windows 8. Now, in 7 and 10, at the end of the taskbar, we see the Start button. If you're in Windows 8, you do not see the Start button. So in 7 and 10, I click on this. I could type anything I want here, like I could type Excel to find the Excel program I want. Now, if you're using Windows 8, you have to get to the Tiles screen. Now, we're going to learn our first keyboard in this class, and we're going to use keyboards throughout the entire class because they are fast. You got to look on your keyboard. On the left side between Control and Alt, there's a window key, and we're going to use this key a lot. But this one, all we do is hit the window key. Just hit it once. And look at that. It opens up the Start menu, and we could start typing. If you're in Windows 8, when you hit the window key, it opens up the Tiles screen. And you can do the same thing. You can simply type whatever it is you're searching for, and it will show up. Now, I'm going to click Escape here. The taskbar shows up at the bottom of our desktop or all of our windows in any one of the operating systems. Now, remember, we didn't have a PowerPoint icon, which would open up PowerPoint. So we want to see how to add a button to our taskbar. We can simply hit the window key, and down in the search area, I'm going to type Power. And there it is, PowerPoint. I simply come up and right-click, Pin to Taskbar. And just like that, I see there is PowerPoint. Now, watch this. I can click and hold it and move it. Notice I'm just dragging it off to the side. And there it is right next to Word. I can also, if you have icons you don't want, right-click, unpin this program from the taskbar. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about Windows Explorer and then open up each one of the programs, or at least a few of the programs. So you need to take your jump drive, which is required for this class, and put it either into the front of the computer or the back of the computer or the side of the computer or wherever. So I'm going to put mine in. And sometimes this pops up. If I click Open Folder to View, notice it says Using Windows Explorer. If I click on this, it opens Windows Explorer. Now I'm going to come up and close this. Now remember, we plugged in our USB drive and it opened up that little window and we clicked on it. I also could, to open up Windows Explorer, click on this button, and I'm going to do that. The keyboard to open up Windows Explorer. And we will do this a lot in this class, especially when we're dealing with a lot of files we're downloading. You hold the Window key and then tap E. So the keyboard is Window E. That opens up Windows Explorer. Now, what is Windows Explorer? Well, right down the middle, there is a bar that divides the left and the right side. I'm going to very carefully point to that bar, and sometimes it's hard to get your cursor. There it is. That horizontal white arrow, if I click and drag, now I can move and make the left side smaller or bigger. I'm going to stop right about there. Now, the beauty of Windows Explorer is this is the whole hierarchical structure of our computer. We can click on any drive, for example, the C drive, and as soon as I click on it, over on the right, I can see everything inside of it. Now, later, in a little bit in this video and next video, we'll do a lot with managing files and folders. We can create folders, we can move files, delete files, and lots of other file management tasks. Now, this was the C I put in my jump drive. So watch this. I'm going to click on it. And as soon as I click on it on the left, see everything inside that drive on the right. Now I want to go back and click on C. Notice I just see the C drive over here and everything inside of it on the right. But watch this. There's a little triangle on its side. That's called an expand and collapse button. In some operating systems, you might see a plus and a minus. But watch this. I'm going to click on it. And there it is. I am allowed to see everything inside C drive here. Well, wait a second. It's not everything. It's only folders. Notice the actual files over here. Those are never going to show up on the left. Only all of the other places we can drill into. So one great use for Windows Explorer is drilling down into the correct folder to do whatever it is you want inside that folder. And we'll do that a little bit in the next video and a lot in the third video. Now I want to click on the F drive. That's our jump drive we put in. By the way, we can come up here, since it's taking up a lot of space, and click that little triangle to collapse everything back up. One other thing, notice I can click and see everything inside. When I use the triangle or the pluses and minuses, those only expose and show things over here on the left. Now I'm going to collapse it and click on my what's called Kingston F. Now that letter might be different on your computer, but that's the jump drive that we put in. Now what I want to do is I clicked on the drive. Now I'm going to click in the white area, which means I'm, in essence, inside of here. Now I want to create a new folder using Windows Explorer. One way to do it is click the New Folder button. If I click that, it's very polite. It creates a new folder and highlights in blue the name of the folder. Now I'm going to click Escape. And now I want to learn the keyboard for delete because I want to delete it. What's the keyboard? Well, this is sort of a computer joke. It's just the delete key. Now, it says delete folder. And I want you to notice something. It says want to permanently delete this folder. Usually this message says Would you like me to send this to the recycling bin? That's because when you do something on a plug-in drive like this, it is not going to send it to the recycling bin. And if you read the dialog box, it'll be polite and tell you, I do want to permanently delete this. So I'm going to say yes. Another way to create a folder is right-click, New Folder. I'm never going to do that because that takes too long. Either that button up there or later when we're creating a system of folders, the absolute fastest way is to use a keyboard. Control, Shift, and N. Now notice it's polite. It highlights the potential name. I do not have to hit delete. Anytime something's highlighted, whether it's in Word or Excel or Windows Explorer or even an address bar in a browser, all you have to do is start typing, and it will delete it and put the new name in. So I'm going to type Excel space file. Now when I hit Enter, I have a new folder called Excel file. We're going to use that folder in just a second when we create our first Excel file. Now I'm immediately going to do Control Shift N. I see that it's highlighted. I type Word file and Enter. So I have created two folders inside my jump drive. Now I'm going to come over and expose on the left. And look at that. There it is. Excel file, Word file. Now notice, these are alphabetically sorted. I don't see that over here. This one is reflecting more quickly than this one because I created them over here. Now we can sort in Windows Explorer just like we would in iTunes or other systems by simply clicking on the column header. So if I click on Name, it sorts it A to Z. I click on Name again, Z to A. That means the later letters to the earlier letters. Now, I always want the Excel file to come first and the Word one to come second, and then this one can come last. So watch this. I'm going to click on the Excel file folder. And instead of right-clicking Rename, I'm going to use the keyboard F2. Now, I want to put 01 before the X. So notice I can take my cursor, and when I move it over here, there's an I-beam. I can click right before the E and then type 01 space and Enter. Now let's do the same thing up here. Now instead of taking my cursor and clicking on Word file, I'm actually going to use my up arrow. Now your arrow keys are in the navigation area of a standard keyboard. But find your arrow keys, and I'm going to up arrow. So I could certainly up arrow to highlight that Word file folder. Now I'm going to hit F2 to rename. And instead of taking my I-beam cursor and clicking at the beginning, there's a keyboard that we'll use a lot. It's the Home key. The Home and End and Page Down, Page Up. Those are all above the arrow keys on a standard keyboard. You'll have to find the Home key on your keyboard because it's an important key. Now watch this. Let's hit it and see what happens. It is always going to go to the front of the line. Here in Windows Explorer, it goes to the very beginning of the folder name. If we were in a Word document, it would go to the front of the sentence. If we were creating an Excel formula, it would go to the front of the formula. If you're in an address bar in a browser, it'll go to the very front of the address. So now I'm going to type 02 space and Enter. Now look at that. Over here on the left, it's already recognizing the sort. But over here, I'm going to click on Name, and there we go. Now, we've used Windows Explorer to look through various drives. We looked inside on the right. We even created a few folders. Now, we're going to open an Excel file and a Word file, new ones, and save them to these two locations. And then we're going to look at some of the different aspects of the ribbons and the quick access toolbar in Excel and Word. Now I'm going to come down to the taskbar and I'm going to click on the Excel icon. This is a shortcut that opens up the executable file Excel. Oh, look at that. It opened up. It's trying to be polite. It's trying to let me or have the option to open up recent files that I've opened. Over on the right, there's the blank workbook. And in all of the programs we'll see, Word, PowerPoint, they'll always try to offer up these templates. Now, I suppose some people use these templates. But the problem with templates is they oftentimes are generic and don't fit your specific needs. So we're not going to use templates in this class. We're always going to create things from scratch that match exactly the needs for whatever project we're working on. Now we can click on the blank with our cursor here, and it opens up a new workbook. Or every time you open up Excel, you can simply hit the Escape key. The Escape key is up in the upper left-hand corner. There it is, a brand new blank Excel workbook. Look at this up here. This is called the title bar, and that is a terrible name. Book 1. We always want to name our files smartly, just like we're going to name our folders smartly. Now, we haven't talked about the ribbons. We'll talk about those in just a second. And this up here is called the Quick Access Toolbar. But I want to go and click on File. This is called Backstage View. Now, there's lots of options here. We can click on Info. That'll give you information about this particular file. New. We're never going to use this option here in Backstage View because we're going to use keyboards. If we want to open up a new blank file, we'll use the keyboard Control-N. Open. We're never going to use this either because when we want to open something and we're inside a program, we'll use Control-O. There'll be an advantage too because notice I had to click on File. Then I had to click on Open. Then I have to come down and click Browse. That's 3 clicks to get to the Open dialog box. So later we'll learn the keyboard. Same with Save. We're never going to use this option here. We're going to use Control-S to save. Notice it says Save As here, even though that's a different option down here. The reason that Save is saying Save As right here is because Excel and Word and the other programs are smart enough to know that we have never named this file here. So it has no idea where we should save the changes. So currently, Save and Save As are the same. But again, when we have a file and we're just saving changes, we're never going to use this. We're going to use Control-S. Same with this. If we wanted to come up to File, Save As, this, that's 3 clicks. We're going to use the keyboard F12 when we're doing Save As. Save as PDF. We're never going to do that either. I shouldn't have even clicked on it because there's a better keyboard. We'll see how to do that later. Same with Print. Control-P is what we'll use. Share. We're never going to use this in this class, but if you ever want to share, you might use this. Export. We're never going to use that because we know how to use Save As. Publish. We're never going to use that. Well, actually, in an advanced Excel class, we learned how to publish to Power BI, but not in this class. Close. We're never going to use that because we'll use Alt F4 or the red X or something like this. Here's an option that is useful. Account. This tells you things about your account. You could actually change the background and the Office theme if you wanted to. Over here, this is very important because in this day and age, there are all sorts of different versions of Office or different versions of Excel or Word. So this gives you good information. Version so-and-so, build so-and-so. You can even go online and manage your account. And if you're signed up for Office 365, they change things periodically. So you might come here to update, or you might even come here to say, hey, what's new in the latest version? Feedback, we're never going to use that. Options, we will use. Options in whatever program you're in, PowerPoint, Word, Excel. There's a bunch of important options. They change default settings, and we'll get to do that a lot in this class. Now I'm going to close that. So that was Backstage View Escape. And the Backstage View is very similar in all the different programs. Also, the ribbon structure is similar in all the different programs. This is the Home ribbon tab. These are where standard things are that are used most often. Now, the first part and second part sort of look the same when we get to Word and PowerPoint. Access is a whole different animal, but they still have a ribbon there. But here's some things that have to do with copy, cut, paste. We'll see a lot of tricks with those. Font, alignment, that starts to get much different here in Excel. Now, each one of these clipboard, font, and alignment, those are called groups. And then within a group, we have a particular button like wrap text. We use number group and these buttons a lot when we get to Excel. Now, so that's the Home Ribbon tab. This whole thing is considered the ribbon. That's the Home tab in the ribbon. Over here, there's the Insert Ribbon tab. Each one of the versions will have different things that we can insert into the file. They all pretty much have pictures. Excel here has charts. Other programs don't have these types of charts. Page layout, that's where we determine what it looks like when we print. This ribbon tab is in all the different programs. Each one has their different groups. Formulas, well, that one's just in Excel. Data, that one's just in Excel. Review, that's like where you find spell check, although we'll learn a keyboard for that. View, that's where you can go to view different things. In Excel, we can uncheck grid lines to not show the grid lines. Each one of the programs has a view. In PowerPoint, we can view the PowerPoint in different ways. Now, developer, that is not one you probably see on your computer. We're not going to use that in this class. Add-ins, Acrobat, Power Pivot, those are not ones you see probably on your home computer. Those are all added in special. So those are the ribbon tabs. There's the tab. Each one of these is called a group, and these are buttons. Now I want to click in cell A1, and I'm going to use my Control key and the wheel on my mouse to zoom in. That's a great keyboard. It works in Word. It works in browsers. It works in lots of different programs. The other way to do this is down here, there's a zoom bar. Now, this zoom bar right here is actually part of what's called the status bar. And we'll see this in each program. There'll be different options in the status bar. But right here, that's the zoom. You can slide it like that as an alternative method. For me, it just takes too long to come down here and try and grab it when you have Control and roll the wheel. Now I'm just going to type something. Excel is fun, and enter. Now I'm going to come down here and double click this sheet to rename it. And I'm going to type Excel is fun and enter. So that's all I've done. I named this sheet. I put something in cell A1, and now I want to save it. Now we've got to talk about save and save as and the fundamental difference between each. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to use keyboard. So let's just try Control S. That is the keyboard to save changes to a file that's already been saved somewhere and has a name. But notice what it does. It opens up Save As. So I'm going to click Escape because I don't want to have to click all these times to get to the dialog box to save it. The keyboard we're going to use when we're saving it for the first time, or every time we want to do Save As, which is we want to change the location or the file name or the extension. Anytime we do Save As, we're going to use the F12 key. That is a huge time saver. Every time you do Save As, if you did it the long way, you'd be clicking 3 times. All right, here's Save As. We can see up in the upper corner. This is a window, right? Now, you could point to one of the corners of this window, and you see right there, there's a diagonal white arrow. You can click and drag and resize this. Now, there's 3 parts to Save As. Notice left, right. That looks just like Windows Explorer. The first part to Save As is where do you want to save it? So I could scroll down, and I could click on Kingston. We're going to change that in just a second. But right now, I'm using Save As to save this file to that drive. Now, the second part is file name. So I'm very carefully going to click. Notice I just clicked once with my I-beam cursor, and it was polite. It highlighted the whole thing. Now I'm going to type my first Excel file. That's the second step. The third step is save as type. This is also known as the extension. Now, your computer might not show the .xlsx, but I'm going to show you how to change that right after we save this file. Your file might not have the settings set correctly to show the file extension, and that file extension is very important. Your computer might just say Excel workbook. Now, I want to click in the Save as Type text box, and notice there's all sorts of different file types that we can use when saving an Excel file. Now, because we haven't changed the file extension, I will show you that in our next example. I'm just going to accept the default. But here it is. There's three things. Where do you want to save it? What do you want to call it? What's the file type or extension? Now, I can already tell you that is going to be a quiz question. I'm going to say, what are the three parts of save as? Now, I actually want to change something. I don't want to save it exactly to Kingston. So I'm going to click the triangle to expose. Now, I can either use the scroll bar here, or I can use the wheel on my mouse. Now I'm going to click on the folder inside of Kingston. This is Smart File Management. I have created a folder, and I'm going to save this file exactly to the location I want. All right, you ready? Where do you want to save it? What do you want to call it? What's the file extension? 1, 2, 3. Now I can click Save. Now, immediately look up to the title bar. There's the file name. File names are oh so important in this class. Now, I'm going to change something in this file. So I'm going to click in cell C1, and I'm going to type sales and enter. Then I'm going to type 23.52, enter. 36.99, enter. Now, guess what? I changed the file. The content is different. So now we're going to use the keyboard Control-S. Nothing happened. What? I thought I was supposed to open Save As. No, we've already saved this file someplace. So when I click Control-S, it just saves the changes. Now, let's prove this to ourselves. Either click the X in the upper right-hand corner or use Alt F4. Now notice the only other window I have open, actually I have a video recorder window open, but the only other window we should have open is Windows Explorer. So when I closed it, it let us see in here. Now we're going to use Windows Explorer to verify that the file is saved in the correct location. So I click on O1 Excel file. And sure enough, when I click on the left, I can see on the right, there's the file. Now, let's double click. We're going to use Windows Explorer to open our file. And actually, that's how we will open files in this class most of the time. I'm going to double click. Now I'm going to close this because I should have done, because I know this is a basics class. Sometimes when you're learning how to double click, you do a slow double click. If you double click really slowly, it tries to put it in please rename me mode. Now, as soon as that happens, hit the escape key in the upper left-hand corner. And now, if you want to make sure, double click the icon. Then even if you slow double click, it won't put it in edit mode. And sure enough, Control-S totally worked. When we change something, it simply saved the changes to that location. Now I want to use Save As. So what are we going to do? We're not going to go to File, Save As, Browse. That's too many clicks. Escape, escape. I'm just immediately going to hit F12. Now remember, if there's three parts to Save As, that means we can change three things. We can change the location, we can change the file name, or we can change the extension. Now, as soon as we do one of those things, we actually are creating a new file. And this is common. We have our file, and we're happy with our file, but maybe we want to change the name or change the location. In this case, I want to change the file type or extension. So I'm going to click the drop down. And I'm going to choose this one, Excel 97 2003 Workbook. Now, why in the world would I do that? Although the vast majority of people who use Excel on the planet Earth have one of the newer versions, either Excel 2007, 2010, 2013, or 2016, there's still a proportion of people that have this older version. And the newer versions that we create with any one of the versions, we're using Excel 2016, that older computer cannot read our file. So if we're going to email this to someone who does not have the proper version, we can simply use this drop down to select it. And then when we send this workbook to this person, they can read it. Now, what did we do? We did not change the location. If I click the triangle, I can still see it's highlighted, O1 Excel file. I didn't change the name. I changed the extension. Now, when I click Save and close this, Alt F4, guess what? There's two files. Every time you use Save As, it will create a new file. Now, I'm going to double-click and open up my first Excel file. I'm immediately going to hit the F12 key, and I'm going to change the name. Now, watch this. I'm going to come to the file name and double-click the word First. We will see that in Word, PowerPoint, file names, if you double-click a word, it highlights the word. I don't have to hit Delete. I'm just going to type second and a space. Now, notice, if I click the triangle, I'm still in the same location. The file extension is the same, but I've changed the name. So when I click Save, Alt F4, there it is, 3 files. And notice we're using Windows Explorer to look and verify that the files we created are actually there. Now, before we create our next Word file, I actually want to show you how to show these extensions. I mentioned that your computer might not be showing you these extensions. And these extensions are important because they tell us important things about the file. Now, we need to get to folder options. Now, in Windows Explorer, up in this menu bar, under Organize, I can click and come down to Folder and Search options. And when I click this, that's the dialog box we want. Now, your particular, I'm going to click Escape, your particular Windows Explorer might not have that Organize. So here's a more universal way to get to that Folders options. Folders options have been around forever. You have to get to the Control panel if you don't have this button up here. Now, remember, you might have Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows 10. So I need to get to either the Start menu or the tile screen. So I'm going to hit the Window key. And you might immediately see Control Panel, but you can simply type. I type C-O-N-T, and I already have it in my list. So when I click Control Panel, and your Control Panel might look different too, depending on which version you have. But all you got to do is search through. Folders options, again, have been around forever. So this is on every one of our computers in the Control Panel. So I'm going to click Folder Options. And there is our dialog box. Now, we have some tabs, General, View, Search. We want View. And down here, almost all computers, when you first get them, the operating system is set up with this button checked, Hide Extensions for Known File Types. If I click OK, look at that. Now, I can come over here and see the type and read it. We definitely need important information about our file types. Now, just for Excel, it's important to see the different file types, but you might have a Word document. You might have an MOV, which is a video file, or an AVI, or a PDF. So we want to turn those extensions on. Window key, I'm going to type Control. I'm clicking on Control here. Folder options. And there it is, View. Uncheck Hide Extensions for Known File Types. Now, in your notes that you can download for each video, this video, when you download the notes, there's a picture of this because that's very important that on your computer you're going to be working on in this class, you need to uncheck that. Click OK. or Alt F4, I can close that. And there's the file extensions. Now I want to go down and open a Word document, a blank one. So I'm going to click on the blue W. And just like in Excel, we have a list of recent files. We also have our blank and our templates. We can either click on blank or click Escape. And there's our new blank Word document. There it is. That's a terrible name up there, Document 1. So we want to immediately name it even before we do anything. We're always going to do that in this class. We're always going to open up a blank Excel workbook, PowerPoint, Word, and the first thing we're going to do, or we're going to try to do it the first, is to save it with a good name in the right location. Now, I don't want to go up to File, Save, and I don't want to do Control S because that opens up Save As, and I have to click all these times. We're going to use F12 every time we save a file for the first time. Now, here it is. Where do you want to save it? I'm going to click the triangle in Kingston or whatever your jump drive is. And we're going to click on O2 Word file. Now, once you've changed the extension, all of us should be able to see .doc. I'm going to click. It highlights everything, and I'm going to call this my first document. Now, I'm going to click the drop down here. And the most common file extension for us, in Word, it's going to say DOCX. In Excel, it's going to say XLSX. In PowerPoint, it'll say PPTX. But right below the X version is an M version. If you ever see an M version, especially emailed to you from someone you don't know, you got to be suspicious because M means macro. I clicked it. Macro means that this file has the ability to have code behind the scenes. Now, in our Excel portion of this class, we're not going to write code, but we are going to use files .xlsm that have the ability to have code in them. It's more so because the files are from our class, we're going to trust it. But that's the M. So that's an important part of file management, knowing that that M means macro or code. That's in the notes in your handout too. The X, that's our standard file type in Office. So I'm going to change this to DOCM. Where do you want to save it? O2 Word File Folder. What do you want to call it? My first Word document, and the file extension is .docm. I'm going to click Save. Or here's a great keyboard. Any dialog box that we open, and there are a lot of them in all the different programs, if there is a button that is highlighted, that means the Enter key will enact that button. Almost always, the Save button or the Close button, you will see it highlighted in some color. In our case, it's this blue. Now watch this. I'm going to hit Enter. And that click that Save button, and we saved as. Now, I got to show you a great trick in Word just to be silly. Type an equal sign. That's the key to the left of the backspace. And then type RAND, open parentheses, close parentheses. And watch this. When I hit Enter, this is a secret trick in Word. Enter. It adds a bunch of written text. Now, the reason that that's there is oftentimes people want to teach certain formatting tricks. So that's a quick way to add a bunch of text. For us, I just wanted some text there because now I'm going to Control S. Now I'm going to either use the X up here or Alt F4. And we're going to use Windows Explorer to verify that our file got saved to the right location. And sure enough, it did. Now, I'm going to double click and open this. And we've got to talk about one last thing in this first video. These are ribbon tabs. So each one of these. If I click the insert, I can see everything pretty clearly. But watch what happens. This is called the title bar. Over in the title bar, that's the minimize button. Now, minimize doesn't close it. It just minimizes it down to the taskbar. So I'm going to click on this again. That unminimizes it. This one right here is called Restore Down. Now, let's click Restore Down. Oh, it makes it a much smaller size. Now you have control over this restore down. You can point to one of the edges, and when you see your horizontal arrow, you can move it in or move it back. You can point to the corner and click and drag. But the important thing is our ribbon tabs are totally changing, and they will always change depending on the size of the window or the screen resolution. Now I'm going to maximize this. There's actually a keyboard for maximizing and restoring windows. If you find the window key, window down arrow, and window up arrow. Window down arrow restores it down to whatever size you last had, and window up arrow maximizes it. All right, I'm going to close this, Alt F4, go over to the Excel file, double-click this My First Excel file, and I'm going to click Restore Down or use Window Down arrow. Now, if I come over and squeeze this way in, the buttons just totally change. So be aware that sometimes you might have to hunt around for things. All of the buttons are still there under editing, right? They're just, you have to click the little drop down. So now if I window up arrow, notice editing, that's the name of the group. So when I either restore down or window down arrow, editing is what will show up. Window up arrow to maximize up. Alt F4. So in this first video, we had a tour of operating systems, the desktop, the Start button. We talked about Windows Explorer, the left and the right side. We created some folders. We created some files. We talked about file extensions. We showed how to show those extensions. We talked about ribbons. We talked about ribbons and even the backstage view. Now, when we come back in our next video, we're going to just stay in Windows Explorer and just see how to create some folders and use Windows Explorer to do file management. Then in our third video for the first week, we'll create an entire comprehensive system of folders for our entire class. All right, that was a lot of fun. We'll see you next video.